All right, you are live.
All right, thank you, everyone. Welcome to the January 2023 monthly meeting of the Maritime Advisory Board. For those that just joined us, happy belated New Year's. And I see that Mr. Allen joined us, so we in fact do have a quorum, so that is even better. We can move to the first thing I always do is introduce the panel members or the panelists or whatever we're called. I can't remember anymore. We have Alan Miller, a board member, myself, Hope Stewart, staff member, Debbie Goslin, panel member, Frida Wildy, board member, Jake Iverson, a regular guest, Beth Bellis, our harbor master, Scott Allen, a board member, Madeline from City of Annapolis TV, COA TV, and our regular reporter, Kimberly Consoli. So that's everyone that is on the screen, at least at the moment. And with that, I will call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is the approval of our very brief minutes from our more social than business meeting last month. So is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
All right, a second. Scott, second. All in favor? Aye. That's 5. Kimberly, minutes are approved. All right, turning to our business. Debbie, you get the honor of participating in the MIAB on next Monday, I think it is, if in fact they have a meeting. I don't know, just check the website, I guess, and see if they have a meeting.
Okay. Can you forward me Hamilton's email so I can check in with him?
Yep. Let me forward. Debbie. Hope, are you the economic development reporter tonight?
I am. So mark your calendars, January 31st at 6 p.m. for our Economic Matters Committee. It's been rescheduled because, of course, tomorrow's the inauguration. So our maritime businesses will be giving an economic gardening update for City Council. So they'll report back on their experiences with their program. And yeah, we'll be really interested to hear some of the outcomes.
What time is that?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
On Monday the 31st?
Yes, January 31st.
Okay.
And it'll be live streamed.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be, yes.
And it'll also be available YouTube TV.
It will, yeah. So you can watch it later.
Okay. Is that the we have I think is that in advance of a regular council meeting?
Well, it's the Economic Matters Committee, which would normally be,
okay.
which would normally be tomorrow, but because of the inauguration, we've had to reschedule it.
Okay. All right. Any other update on the economic?
Yes. I don't know if you've seen, but Visit Annapolis and Anne Arundel County and a consortium of different jurisdictions have put out an RFP for a Chesapeake Bay ferry passenger feasibility study. So that'll look into the costs and benefits of a ferry system in the Chesapeake Bay. Visit Annapolis was given a U.S. Commerce Department grant to undertake the study. So we'll be interested in seeing what people have to say about that.
This will bring us some of those old ferries from Seattle back around and put them in service.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I would love to see it. I know. So yeah.
They're an interesting way of getting about. They're all over Puget Sound, and they're very effective on Puget Sound. I don't think Puget Sound has quite the business, the number of vehicles that try to get to the Eastern Shore like we do, but they certainly are a major commuter element from the outskirts of Seattle into Seattle.
Well, this one will actually not be for cars. It'll be a passenger ferry that'll link different cities and towns along the Chesapeake Bay. So the idea is to promote water access.
Very good.
Is it expected to be self-funding, or will there be grants to?
I think that'll all be part of the study. You know, that'll all be part of the feasibility study.
the picture that was in the paper, the reason I asked about the vehicle, animated the vehicles was a car ferry.
Okay, yeah, they specifically said that this one will not be for cars. So
Okay.
that'll be interesting.
Anything else on the economic development front?
Well, you all might know that the city of Annapolis, our permitting has changed from eTrackit to My Civic 311. It'll be a new online tracking system. So bear with us as we're going through that transition. Change is always easy, right?
Yes, but it's to bear with us as these changes occur. We just went through that change on one of the online filing websites for one of the courts, and it is it takes a little patience.
I think it will on both ends, consumer and on our end as well. So just bear with us for a while. And that's about it. Thanks.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Hope? All right. Thank you, Hope. That'll be interesting, particularly the planning and the e-track. It's called the 311 or whatever it is going to be.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
My Civic 311.
My Civic 311. Okay. I assume you don't have any update on the comprehensive plan. I know I thought Eric gave an update to the planning commission maybe last month, I think. I thought I saw there was just something about it was on the planning commission agenda or something, that there was an update. We are not fast, but we are approaching 2040. So one of these days, the plan for 2040 ought to get published. How about this? Anybody? I guess it's Hope. You're the only one here. The other thing that we talked about with staff is the status of the Maritime Task Force reports.
I don't have an update on it. I was thinking Mike Tomasini might, but yeah, no, I do not.
We'll see if he has anything when he comes back in. And similarly, the water access plan.
I can say that I know Eric Lashinsky is working very hard on this, and I guess he's compiling stakeholder input, but I don't have any specific updates. But I think that Eric Lashinsky would be the person to ask that question.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know that we sent out the letter to maritime property owners, and we're currently collecting information on for the percentage of maritime versus non-maritime uses, which is part of this water access. So
okay. Beth, what's happening with the street in parks? My favorite topic every year.
Of course. So the good news is we're moving forward with Cheston Avenue. There's a bulkhead rebuild and a new floating dock, and it's out to bid. And I think it's out to bid, and I think the bids are due in February. So I think we should expect groundbreaking. This is for construction because the architecture and engineering is all done. So I think we should expect some big news at Cheston by spring. And 6th Street, I think we're working on the architecture and engineering for 6th Street. So there we're looking for, I hope, dredging and also like a floating dock, but also a pocket park. We also applied for 3 grants this particular year. We haven't heard back officially, but we applied for $250,000 to redo access at Shipwright, 4th Street, over by Davis's Pub, and Hawkins Cove. And the feedback we've heard from DNR so far is that we will probably get Shipwright, and 4th Street and Hawkins Cove might only be a loan, but we're looking for, we think we're pursuing some other stuff. So we think something else great might happen at Hawkins Cove.
So what is the issue at 4th Street? Because that was, I won't say redone recently, but it's my recollection is it was one of the newer and one of the ones in better shape.
That's what I thought too. But then when I went there, I could see that when the tide rises, the top of it's not actually attached to the pilings any longer. So when the tide comes up, the pier's not attached to the pilings.
That's not good.
No, it's not good, and it's a pier that is as heavily used as it can be. I wish it was not so small. I wish it wasn't such a difficult spot, because people love to go to Davis's Pub there, and there's not that much access on that side. So I don't have any input from an engineer yet how to make it greater, but at the very least, we need to make sure it's functional. And right now, because the pier is coming apart from the pilings, we need to work on that.
I hope it's chained to the bulkhead or something so it doesn't at least float away.
I don't think it will, because I've been there a number of times, but it definitely needs work.
All right, we'll look forward to those this spring. And Scott and Alan, any update on the Maritime Hall of Fame or a variation thereof? I know Alan had some good ideas from a previous stint in the historical business down in, what was it, Fort Bragg, I think. And I don't know if you all had a chance to touch base with Ellen or not, but I'll let you all update us on what's happening there.
Yeah, I didn't hear back from Ellen from the letter you sent, Terry. I think you sent a letter to Ellen.
An email, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm back
December
now. I figured,
14th.
Scott, we would link up after this.
Okay, well, that was her. It was her. She was the initiator, and so perhaps now that the holiday season is over, you all may hear back from her. Well, if I get a chance, I'll reach out. I'll just resend my email and see if she wants to follow up with that. But again, that was something she had initiated and discussed with me, and I was just following up on it. So the charter dock use policy, I had sent everybody back in that I got in November from Beth. Thank you, Beth. The statistics from the charter dock. I think we're fast approaching the opportunity or a window of opportunity if we're going to make any recommendations on the charter dock use policy for this upcoming season. You probably need to do so. So I will start with Debbie, who happens to be on the top row of the pictures. So if you've got any thoughts or ideas, and then I'll ask Jake also, and then the rest of the board if you've got any ideas.
I'm going to let Jake go first, if that's all right.
Okay.
Hey, thank you. Charter dock. This past year, the charter dock has ran rather smoothly. You know, I don't see that there needs to be any changes. I don't have a recommendation to recommend, but from my end, it seems to be running smoothly. We reach out if it's a ticketed event 7 days prior, put that in with the harbor master's office. It's a private charter. Of course, we can do it months in advance. I think it's running rather smoothly.
Well, that's encouraging. That's encouraging to hear after all of the back and forth we heard a year ago this time. Debbie, anything to add to that?
What was the final on whether or not boats had to pay if they were at one dock or the other dock? And I know that we had made recommendations early on about that, and I'm not sure that they ever got in place. If they were going to charge, then they had to pay, but I think was our recommendation. Beth, what's ended up?
So currently, if you are getting a fee waiver, or if you're coming to the Burtis dock and you are doing your one of 4 free weeks as a nonprofit, you may not charge for you may not charge for goods, you may not charge for deck tours or sailings, but there are specific events where people are asking for waivers. So for example, the uprigging, if we're having an uprigging and we're having like these big tall ships come, they would like to ask for council approval. So we don't have anything in the works. So right now, Title 15 states that you can't do any commercial activity, which means charging for anything, unless you are at the charter dock or if you have a approved lease through the city council. So those are the only two people that can charge for stuff. And then if we want waivers for that, that has to go through the council. And so we're sticking with Title 15, and our Berta stock echoes that same sentiment. And so for the uprigging, I'm sure that the city's going to be asking for a blanket approval
Waiver.
for that uprigging. But right now, I don't know if we have enough
But
participants
that
to
would be
pull
the
that off.
only, that would be the only event that you foresee that waiver request being for?
No, I think it's going to happen over and over and over. I do think that's going to happen a lot. Not a lot. A few times, I should say that.
And do you think that would be limited to the Berta stock?
I'm not sure. So if we do an uprigging and there are like 8 tall ships, that would probably cover the charter dock, the DNR dock, both sides of the Berta dock and the north face. And so that would be much more than just that area.
And
So I'm sure there'll be people that want to weigh in on that.
And how much in advance do they need to put in for that waiver?
So the bird stock policy states that they need to put in for that 75 days ahead of their requested charter.
And the uprigging is in what, in April or in May?
It's in May.
Okay,
If we can pull it off, because the Pride's already pulled out and so has the Lynx. So if we can only get small boats, we need to look at it and make
why did
sure it
they
makes
pull
sense.
out? Why did they pull out, Beth?
They're doing something in the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
The Pride did, they already have plans, and the Lynx will not be up north this far at that time. So if we can get Sultana or Maryland Dove, I think it might be in the city's best interest to try to push forward and have this nice event. But we have to get these bigger boats or it doesn't make sense. We can't just have like 2 little sailboats. We have to get some bigger folks. So the invitations are out and we're going to keep marketing it and see what we can pull off.
And does that mean that for that time period, the charter dock would not be available for other paying boats?
No one has reserved it at this time. So yeah. So if the council approves that and if that moves forward, then yes, it will be not available.
so Beth, would you let me know, and I can then forward to the rest of the board, if and when you get that application that would affect in particular the charter dock? Because we might want to weigh in on that depending on the week or weekend that is being impacted for that. I'm assuming it would not be a Blue Angels week or weekend.
So I think we're looking at May 2nd through 7th. If my memory is correct. So May 2nd through 7th, I think, or maybe 3rd through 7th. And yeah, so far we have like the Mildred Bell, we have some smaller ships. And it's not enough. It's not enough to do this uprigging yet. But I can certainly keep you posted.
Yeah, and in particular, because you said with the 75 days, if we're talking about a May 2nd, we're talking about fee application or waiver applications being submitted by, the 13th or 15th of February. If they're going to do that, and it would be good that if those applications come in, I suspect our February meeting follows the deadline for those applications, and it would be good to be able to take that up at our February meeting and see what impact it may or may not have and make whatever recommendations we're going to make.
Sure, of course. Like I'll try to keep you updated. So I only gave them a March 1st deadline. But I can still keep on reaching out to them to say, hey, what do you know? And I can keep you posted.
Yeah, please. I think it's something that we need to be aware of because of the impact on the charter dock. That's coming into spring season and
The big month.
yeah, it starts.
Yeah, we talked amongst ourselves at the office today about the charter dock, and there are some people that are saying that we should be using it more heavily. So, I'm thinking about that, and it is used well, and we do make tens of thousands of dollars in the charter dock, and I think the people that use it are quite pleased with the availability. But because of the construction and the dolphins, it's not ideal for certain fishing charters or parasailers. So like maybe, I'm not sure what to do about that, but I've been thinking about that lately. Like how could we have a makeshift floating dock that we bring in? Because I don't think we ever, like when someone applies for a charter dock, we almost never say no. We might say, hey, you have to move it 15 minutes, or you might have to move it half an hour, but we never say no because it is available a lot. But it is a bit awkward for smaller boats. So I have been thinking about how we could market that for fishing charters, parasailers, and other commercial vessels.
Or how, is there a place to configure that arrangement? That's not necessarily at the charter dock, but on one of the unencumbered, and it's really the Burtis unencumbered dock, to accommodate that also.
Yes, I totally agree, but that would require a tweak of Title 15.
The North Face has had a floating dock there, and then boats have used that. It's a nice, easy, out of the way place for a floating dock.
All of those are great ideas. We need a tweak of Title 15 because it still says charter dock or a lease. So if we're going to do, and I've had probably 4 to 5 entities reach out to me in the last 3 months to say, can we please ask for a lease, or can we please understand more about your charter dock? So there's an increasing number of commercial entities that are interested. And I think we can entertain that if we don't bog down the Burtis dock. We need to be thoughtful. I would say we need to be thoughtful about what we do with the long dock because it's not encumbered.
Right, but the city dock action plan, or whatever was the outgrowth of the city dock action committee, made specific reference to encouraging these multiplicity of uses, particularly at the Burtis dock, because it was unencumbered. And so I think I'd like to have stay in the loop as that thinking goes on, because I think there are, as you said, it's not just tour type things, but it's the parasailing, it's fishing, it's other activities that the city has wanted to, in the broader picture of water access, that frankly, a visiting tall ship does not necessarily provide water access. It provides a static display and maybe an on-deck tour, but it doesn't provide the kind of water access that we've been aiming for in the bigger scheme of things. So I think we're just going to have to try to be as creative as we can with respect to that. And I'd like to keep the board in the loop on that.
We've never done this before, but I think we could do also like shared leases. So for example, the Navy side of the short dock is also unencumbered, and you could put like Sip Ahoy. Sip Ahoy does like a pedal boat with like tiki. Those folks could do like certain weeks of the month and share that with a different entity.
But isn't the Navy side basically, and I call it you're talking about the Navy side of Burtis dock, or you talking about the bulkhead?
No, the Navy side of the short dock.
Navy side of the short dock. Okay.
Yeah, that's also not encumbered, and that would be a nice spot for like a parasailer or a fishing boat, and they could share that lease with a different entity. It's not going to be a ton of money for the city, but it might encourage the sort of activity that the mayor is after.
Right.
Well,
That was part of the city dock plan it wasn't this necessarily that it's a huge moneymaker as more that it is to contribute to the vibrancy of but what will become the revamped Susan Campbell Park, et cetera. So, so that to the extent that we can, work towards that, that's what we need to be, I think we need to be doing. So I'm gonna actually add that back onto, or keep that on the agenda with it in mind as to how we can continue to explore. One of the things that in terms of sharing, or at least having a central clearinghouse of some sort, was and it's not identical, but during COVID, and Mike Tomasini was actively involved in the Eastport, is that when these applications were coming in during the COVID emergency for restaurant modifications into parking lots and parklets, et cetera, it was all done through in the case of Eastport, wasn't it done through the Eastport Business Association, Mike? So it was a single application on behalf of multiple businesses that would that then the city could approve, and then all those whoever was part of that single application all got their approvals sort of in a blanket fashion. It's not exactly the same model, but it might provide some basis for what you were talking about as a central entity being available to provide the umbrella for multiple users under a single lease or whatever arrangement. It would have to be a lease. So something to keep in mind. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments on that and the city dock charter policy overall? Scott.
I have one of the things, and Terry, you probably know about it as much as I do. The Eastport Yacht Club Class 8 boat, wooden boat festival regatta weekend. I think they are looking for more dock space for more of the small to medium sized boats for that event, so they can have it all in one place. And that would be the kind of thing where the Eastport Yacht Club, Beth, could apply 75 days in advance, or how would that work for thinking of the Burtis Pier or the area there on one or both sides of the dock, but they need dock space, and it would be a nice classic thing for the city as well.
We've talked about that event for so many years, and doesn't seem like we're able to pull it off. And I think the issue is we're never able to get a commitment from the boat owners. So that's the first challenge, I think. And then the second challenge is we can't use grant encumbered spaces unless we get permission from DNR, which I'm perfectly happy to ask for. So we need to get folks to commit to that. So
because the Eastport Yacht Club, if they committed, then they'd be responsible for arranging the boats and save you effort. If I would.
I wouldn't like to do it like that. What I would like to do is get the captains to commit and sign a contract and say, we're going to come. And if we're not going to come, we're going to tell you 3 days out. And if we don't tell you, then we're going to have, everyone needs to have a little skin in the game. Otherwise, this turns into something where people say they're going to do something and then they don't do it. So I'd love to I would love to have this just something where the captains say, I'm going to come, and it's free because the council permits it to be free. But if I don't come, then I have some skin in the game and I'm going to have to pay some money. So I need to cancel or I need to come. I think that in my experience, that needs to happen. And there's nothing I love more than maritime history. So I would love to help with this, but I just need for people to be realistic about, people need to have, they need to commit or not.
Yeah. Well, the Eastport Yacht Club could arrange that in general, then each boat would have to make the arrangements with you, but they could chase around and save you trouble, and then each boat owner would sign up with you.
Yeah, that'd be fine. We just did
Okay.
that with, the lights parade and it worked very well. It
Okay,
was fine.
well, I'll pass that on to the people who are asking me about it, so get together with you.
Yeah, I'm
We'll
happy
talk
to help
about it.
with that.
Yeah, okay, great.
So Beth and maybe Jake too, I don't know who wants to weigh in on this. How did, obviously the ship got into the city dock and it got out of city dock without running aground or becoming another ever forward. And that was harbor, but the vessel that came in over New Year's was remarkably a large vessel. And I assume that I think I saw there were some harbor restrictions escorting it in and escorting it out. How did that go?
It went very well. It's been there, they've been here 3 years in a row.
Oh, well, so much for my memory of that.
It's okay. So they always anchor out and bring their tender in. And the only day that we can accommodate them is New Year's Day. And that's because Watermark doesn't have Harbor Queen there. And they can never do it if there's any wind at all, because our dock could not withstand that. And the city makes like maybe $1,200-$1,300. But I think the better bang for our buck is the tourist. Like, I think people like to see it. And I also think that American Cruise Line is an American flagged cruise ship. So it's nice for them. They get a little bit of marketing bang, and also they have a lot of elderly folks in their boat and they don't have to tender in. So I think it was all good. I mean, I helped tie it up. It was fun. I hope we can do it every January 1st, but I don't think we can do it any other day because we have too many other competing needs.
And you know, it's the back to your point that when you responded to Scott, it doesn't help the vibrancy of City Dock to have us hold a space for a vessel that's a no-show. I mean, it all it does is, particularly on a busy weekend or on a busy day, if a slip or a bulkhead or a dock is sitting empty, the optics are not good for starters. It's not as much about the money as it is about, you know, we want to have a vibrant, we want to be moving towards a vibrant city dock and public and water access environment down there, and having a private sailboat come in who then decides that's been offered a free space and then decides not to come. I agree with you that they need a skin in that game to be able to ensure that we keep that vibrancy by having vessels coming and going. I mean, that's what the dock is all about. So I would support that, making sure that they have a skin in the game. And Scott, you know, you can pass that on to EYC. That I think that's the key is that we want the usage. We don't want vacancy and just a few dollars. Jake.
The DNR grant, when the American Cruise Line's ship is there, does it affect that grant at all, since it kind of blocks that whole slip of the north face, or does it not matter?
So I guess technically someone could argue that the north face is a grant encumbered and no one can go there. But that was occupied and they chose not to leave. So we didn't really lose any money. So we tiptoe around that, and we ask permission all the time for all of that stuff. But for one day in the year, in the dead of winter, I think we're okay.
Oh, and
So you don't need to ask for permission for that one day.
I mean, it's occupied anyway.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
what
there
would
was
I
a-
ask for permission for, since my occupant doesn't choose to leave? I'm still making money there.
well, more importantly, you're complying with the DNR requirement. So if they don't mind being blocked in, wouldn't see where that would violate. Because the grant encumbrance says you can't use it for, it's granting encumbered as to the actual use. And if it's being used for that purpose, the fact that they voluntarily agree that somebody else can block them in.
That's where my head's at.
I mean, I've read that grant, I've read that encumbrance, and as long as as long as that dock is not being prohibited from being, or is that, as long as that dock is available for use and it's available for use.
And that boat's only there from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. one day.
Well, the one day, I agree with Jake's suggestion that the one day is not necessarily the operative factor. The operative factor is that that dock remains available. And in fact, in this particular case, and I suspect on other New Year's Eves, it would be the same, is that dock was in fact used.
I think the word, Terry, is probably prevention. If the charter boat prevents the dock from being used. So Beth says if it's already being used, I think you're good, or she's good.
Yeah. I
If
mean,
it was empty and then it's prevented, blocked from being used, then I think that's the issue.
right. And if it's, and somebody somebody wants to use it to boot.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I think you would also want to say, like, there was also 200 feet of Ego Alley bulkhead and no one asked to use it. So we wouldn't turn anyone away, even if that space wasn't used, because we kind of know what our demand is there. And we already have like 7 more spaces for boats that would use that kind of a space. And we're not going to turn them away because we have plenty more spaces.
All right. Well, good news is New Year's Eve is 355 days away. So we can defer that one. I keep it on the list just because it is going to come back up again, but the issue of boat B&B, short-term rental / commercial activity. I mean, the commercial activity goes to city facilities, but the bigger or the longer term issue may be boat B&Bs and short-term rental. Beth, any input on that you?
I mean, we had like probably 3 major violations this year. Everyone got a citation. No one was found not guilty. There were different verdicts, like people paid out. Most people paid out. One person did some type of an agreement with the Office of Laws and stopped doing it. So we don't have a lot of that, but we do cite them when it happens, and it's not a huge problem.
All right. Well, I think if the word is out that they need to comply and they can't be running a Airbnb, on the moorings or at city dock, the word will get out. And if we've only had 3 issues, given the prevalence of short-term rentals elsewhere in the city, that's probably a pretty good statistic. And moving along rather quickly, I sent everybody a copy of the annual report. It tends to mirror earlier annual reports, except for the specifics of of what we did in the past year and some of the specifics of what we have on the list for the following year. Is there any comment or questions or suggestions before we simply put it to a vote so I can send it off to the boards and commissions chair? Boy, this is
Perfect.
This is
You did a
going
great
quick.
job.
This is going quick. Is there a motion to adopt the report, the 2022 report to submit to the city per code?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I'll get that out tomorrow.
Thank you, Terry, for doing the heavy lifting on that.
Well, thank God for Word Perfect, at least in part. Beth, anything more on the shoreline, St. Mary shoreline? Hi, Beth. Bye, Beth. I hadn't heard anything more. Has anybody else heard anything on St. Mary's? Just kind of keep it on there to monitor. I took off the abandoned vessels. That just happened to get held on. That was already enacted, and we'll see how it plays out. That's all. Last but not least, is there any update on the status of our electric mobility plan, Beth?
I got an email, gosh, let me check my phone because I got an email today. Hold on.
I saw that there was some funding or something for a study or something, maybe a month or so.
Yeah, I think that's where we are. This is from Kwaku, who's in charge of our transportation. Checked his status of the application on December 5th. And so we're waiting for this grant. And we don't have an update. And he checked again, I think he checked again today. So we don't have an update on our grant application. So we're kind of stuck there, I think. That's where I think we are.
So the grant would be for what? For a study of a plan or the preparation of a plan? What is the grant for?
Let me look again. I think it's a study, ferry pilot, which would tell me
Yeah,
Annapolis Electric Ferry Pilot Program received by the agency. I think it's still a study, honestly.
That's what I had heard. That's what I had read.
That's what I'm reading.
Okay.
Where would the grant come from, Terry?
I don't know. Who was the grant submitted to?
So this is grants.gov. Looks federal to me. Ferry pilot.
When you say ferry pilot, though, that sounds like what we were talking about earlier, the Baywide passenger ferry pilot program. Not the mobility program within city waters.
We maybe should invite Kwaku or Eric Lashinsky to the next meeting, because I feel like I'm giving you third-party information, and I don't want to do that. So I think we should.
Who's the, I recognize Eric's name, obviously, but who?
Eric Lashinsky, I'm not sure of his job title, but Kwaku, I can't say his last name.
Oh, Kwaku?
Transportation director.
At transportation.
Yeah, I think we should get it from the horse's mouth. I think we should get this information from the person that has applied for this grant, because I'm going to give you information that's going to be maybe correct, but maybe not.
Well, and it sounds like we've got either and I wouldn't call it a ferry so much in the city, but we've got I'll call it bay wide. It's not, probably doesn't going to be bay wide, but the bay ferry that Hope talked about earlier. And then we have the water, the electric mobility plan, which encompassed a number of things, one of which I think the e-bikes, the birds were part of that plan, which I must say tend to be prolific and are left everywhere. And I don't know how that model works, but they certainly seem to abandon them willy-nilly. If you drive around town, or at least in Eastport for sure. But yeah, I will reach out. I've made a note to invite Eric and transportation to give us an update on that for the next meeting. All right. Any other new business discussion, conversation, complaints, compliments, whatever? Boy, is there a motion to adjourn? This is great. I say great. It's just we'll get an early evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, Debbie. Any second?
Second.
Read a second. Boy, everybody, I'm surprised nobody was jumping on adjourning. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Madeline. See you
Good
all-
seeing everybody.
See everybody
Yeah.
next month and enjoy